And let's now go across to our next guest, Dr. Sreeram Chaulia. He's an expert in the international relations. Let's go across to him. Thanks very much, Dr. Chaulia, for joining us here on Doordarshan News. Of course, we are seeing that bonhomie between Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Morrison. How much importance are you attaching to this virtual summit taking place between both the Prime Ministers? Very significant, and especially at this time of, the whole world tackling the COVID-19 pandemic and, of course, other important bilateral matters being taken up.
Yeah, technology has solved our problem because, as you know, the diplomatic calendar has been frozen due to the pandemic and the curbs on international travel and the fears of contagion. So luckily now we are, moving toward this e-summit or online diplomacy. It's in fact an innovation which has been forced upon us by the pandemic. So Scott Morrison was supposed to visit India and spend a whole week, go to multiple destinations, high profile trip. But now instead we are doing this through video conferencing, which is good because, the crucial relationships cannot wait. So the normalization. So I think we decided both sides that we should go for this virtual summit. So this is historical, not only due to the substance, which I will come to, but also due to the method by which this summit is happening. Prime Minister Modi has already done a lot of multilateral summits through online. I mean, we know the SAARC meeting that happened, the G20, and several, and the NAM, non-aligned movement, and so on. But this is the first full-fledged official bilateral delegation to delegation, counterparts meeting across the board, led by the two leaders. All of this happening through online means. So I think this is an innovation worth remembering in the context of the pandemic. Coming to the substance, the upgrade to the strategic, comprehensive strategic partnership is very significant because earlier it was only called strategic. We added this prefix now to signify and to signal, because summits at the end of the day, a lot of agreements are signed, exchanged, and then the bureaucracies, they follow up. But the important point is the top leaders are there and are, exchanging views directly face to face, and also are signaling to the rest of the world. Now, Scott Morrison interestingly said that Prime Minister Modi's leadership has become a stabilizing influence together with Prime Minister Shinzo Abe of Japan. And he also added Vietnam, Indonesia, and the US in the mix. So Australia clearly is signaling that we, the middle powers, especially in the Indo-Pacific, we share this common space. We need to come together in this moment. And PM Modi also especially said this is the perfect time for this kind of summit. When he meant perfect time, he's talking about this strategic space and the opportunity for stabilizing the Indo-Pacific. So there's a lot of strategic content, geostrategic. PM also mentioned shared geography.
Right.
That's very critical because this is not, India and some European country. This is not India and some Latin American country. This is not India and some African country. This is actually a country that is part of Asia. It's part of the Indo-Pacific. And so it is right our backyard, So this is a common space, and we are looking to create a balance of power here. I think, as Ambassador Wada was mentioning earlier also, there is a, growing fear about, Chinese hegemony in the region. So Australia is looking for partners. Australia, PM Scott Morrison also mentioned that India is taking charge of the WHO executive board. Now, Australia has played a very, strong advocacy role for investigating the origins of the coronavirus. And there, it has had friction with China, which is also a big partner for Australia. But Australia is looking to diversify. Australia is looking to build partnerships with other major countries in Asia, in the Indo-Pacific, that can help it reduce its dependence on China. So I think I would put this in the larger context where India's significance for Australia is rising, and we are also reciprocating.
Okay. Also, Dr. Chaulia, of course, we're seeing the ties being upgraded there, and so a lot of expectations clearly from this very significant virtual summit between both the Prime Ministers. What big takeaways are you anticipating, from this virtual summit?
Well, one is, of course, the logistical support agreement and the DST, the science and technology, now defense technology. Now, these are going to be the building blocks for this new upgraded comprehensive strategic partnership. We have a similar thing with the US. And with Australia, in almost it's parallel to the US bilateral relationship, the way it is being upgraded, because with the US also we have 2+2 dialogue of foreign ministers and defense ministers, plus regular summits. Now with Australia also we are doing 2+2 plus regular summits. Even the pandemic cannot stop the summits from happening. We are using online technology to go ahead. So I think that is going to be very critical. The interoperability of the militaries, if the bases of the two countries can be shared by the navies of the two sides, it will make a huge difference. There's also, the question of the Australian students coming to India, that which Scott Morrison raised, because already we have more than 100,000 Indian students go to study in Australia,
Okay.
Australian universities.
Absolutely.
But Morrison wants in the reverse to have more Australian students coming to India. This is where the Australian government has something called a New Colombo Plan to finance their students to go to other parts of Asia and to study there, to build the cultural ties. So I would expect more, deepening of the educational cooperation. And as
Okay.
far as the scientific and the COVID-19 goes,
Right.
that's very, very central right now in the present moment. And remember, Australia has been very successful in countering coronavirus. In fact, in
Absolutely.
the Asia Pacific, in the Indo-Pacific region,
Yes.
New Zealand and Australia are the two
Yes.
countries that have
True.
almost brought it down to zero. No cases, no growth. They've
Absolutely.
flattened the curve, and they've done it over 3 months. So there is much that we in India can learn from Australia.
Sure.
And
Sure.
also the vaccine development, there are joint projects going on between Australian universities and our scientists. And I would say that, Australia has become a leader in proposing, an alternative strategic environment, because they are wary about the withdrawal of the US from the region. See, a lot of the traditional US allies, Australia as a US ally in the region, has been worried about the potential, exit of the US or a reduced US footprint in the region. So I think they need
Right.
India,
Okay,
and
Dr.
they are
Chaulia.
looking at
Sure.
ways by which we can do this interoperability to a higher level. So I would say these are the highlights. There's a mineral development. Adani, one of our major companies, is developing a major coal
Okay.
mine in Australia. There are lots of mutual
Absolutely.
investment projects also, and that's something that we need to develop. Interestingly, the Indian investment in Australia is about 10 billion, and almost equal to Australian investment in India. So
Okay.
that is quite, because usually we tend to want to receive more investment from other countries, especially richer and developed countries. But in this case, our businesses also are taking stakes in the Australian mining sector. So I think these are ways by which we can, build the synergies,
Right.
because it has to be military,
Sure.
it has to be.
Okay. All right. We'll come back to Dr. Chaulia in